it's not our business to punish people. It's our business to get people out of harm's way and to make sure that mistakes are not repeated in the future. Vengeance is not a particularly Jewish idea. Any punishment can be done by God except that which happens in a court of law, which is specified by protocols of Jewish law. That wasn't the case here. The fellow was actually doing time. The question was, this guy in the organization, who is out already, we want him punished. We want to see more jail time. We want to see this guy. We want this guy to suffer. I get the agony that these families may have had to go through. By the way, we're not talking about, in this case, rape or anything like that. The allegations were serious groping and physical contact, and I'm sure it did harm some of the, particularly it was boys, both boys and girls. Sure, they felt very, very used and abused in the process. But again, there's a gradient. But these people wanted blood. Wanting blood is not the Jewish way. And I'm appalled by it. I was appalled by it then, and I don't expect very much different in general society. But that's not the way we are taught to react as Jews. The Talmud talks about the seriousness of inviting down divine wrath against other people. Even when they do it. If God wants to do it, that's His business. There are times we should be looking for punishment, not because we feel wounded or offended. The only example that I can give comes from last week's Parsha, where Yitzhock joined the Jewish people in the wilderness, and he expresses his amazement and his wonderment for all of the great things that God did for the Jewish people. Boy, he got back at those Egyptians good. And that's great. He felt really good for his son-in-law, Moses, and the Jewish people. The Sforno, Rav Sforno in the 15th century, said that Yisroel was at fault there. Not feeling good for the Jewish people, but he should have felt good for God. Kaviyachol, as it were. How many times do you see like God setting the score straight? It doesn't happen very often in human history. God usually has to act from behind the scenes. You don't find this absolute balance of divine retribution matching the triangle of the Bible. He saw it, he should have been happy for that. But that's his job. It's not our job to arrange it. I know there was the bumper sticker, it's God's job to punish bin Laden, and it's our job to arrange the meeting. It's not the same way with every criminal out there. It's not our job to arrange the punishment. Let me finish up with the solution. And this may be the most controversial thing that I say all evening, and that is that in some circumstances I'm not sufficiently well read or skilled or experienced with this to tell you what they all are. But in some circumstances, the so-called cover-up is not the worst thing in the world. Please do not misquote me. I'm not talking about active abuse. But not every infraction should be dealt with by throwing the book in the public eye. What do I mean? You have somebody in the classroom, some young male teacher who is guilty. I mean, the teacher shouldn't do it. He makes remarks to some of the students in the class, comments on their dress, how they look, inappropriate. Nothing more than that. Do you fire him? Do you go public? What if the guy, what if an employer once at a time, his marriage wasn't going so well. An employer who happens to be an observant guy lost himself and had some physical contact with, consensual with an employee. Several things, it's forbidden by Jewish law. And there wasn't a repetition of that for the next 25 years. And then somebody comes ahead, that same person comes 25 years later and wants to smear it. Is she right? Is she wrong? She's right. That what happened then was wrong. No repetition of 25 years. Is there any value in having that now spread to the entire community? In dragging him, his family, maybe even if he deserves it, if his family deserve it. There are a small number of problems that can be dealt with discreetly. When they're done by the right people. Not everything should go through the unwavering and unceasing protocol of the way the law sets things up. Everything's out in the open. Everybody can find out. That's not the way to deal with every problem. There are some problems that can be solved by moving people out of a particular line of work or a particular situation, and there will be no repetition. Again, that's not true of child abuses or sex abuses in general. There's no way of safely moving them out. The pitfalls of all of this are two. One, that when you don't go to the government, which can sometimes overreact, you sometimes get underreaction. There are people who have connections, who prevail upon people if they're not acting. Sometimes there's a tendency to act too slowly. You don't want to act against colleagues. And sometimes out of either the wrong reasons or just naivete. There was one famous, you saw the stuff, was on Lifeline a couple of months ago, one psychologist in Brooklyn. Yeah, I can't tell you for sure that he's guilty, but a lot of people assume that he was. A couple of psychologists, Orthodox psychologists in Brooklyn, who were found out, that people tried to cover up and they had the right relatives. In one case, actually more than one case, what they did is they shipped the guy out of the country, and so now he's operating in Jerusalem as a psychologist. Nobody's helped by that except the Brooklyn community that got rid of him. So now he's abusing other people. I don't know if he is or isn't, but you don't solve anything that way. But there are times where you can direct people into different professions or whatever, and you can save people from the jail time and their children and their wives and their families. There's no mitzvah to have to do things by the book. And that's why sometimes discretion by the right people, by the right agencies, is not, in my opinion, the worst thing out there. What's the actual solution to this, the best way to go? We're down to the last 30 seconds. Okay. That is that cities should have special camps within the community to deal with these issues. The average Jewish court doesn't have the specialized knowledge, is subject to their own pressures. There's one city that actually put something together, and they say the results are quite good, and that's Chicago. Chicago put together a special court. All issues, all charges, allegations, or whatever are brought to a special Bezdin, special Jewish court, dealing with issues of abuse. They can act quietly if they have to. They can act publicly if they have to, but they have the option. The RCA is being pushed to do the same thing. I don't know whether they will or they won't, and I have no idea whether there are plans afoot. I purposely did not ask, so I wouldn't have to find the answer. Whether there are such plans afoot in Los Angeles, although my personal guess is that there won't be such a thing in Los Angeles. That is probably what we should be pushing for as a community. To have people who are trusted and more or less beyond the usual charges of maintaining their own connections. there are ways around that. If you have enough people on a panel,